Okay, so riding horse. Get the toes pointing in a little bit. Helps open the lower back. Let's just start by rubbing the hands and helping to activate the dantian. Placing the hands on the dantian and just let everything just settle and contract, concentrate, focus into that point. So the front dantians, this one, the heart and the head, they're just one thing. I've got one thing here, one thing here, one thing here. But on the back, they sort of double. That's what we want to feel. I want to feel this focusing in here, allowing this exit from the back, but from two places either side of the spine. Now let's rub the hands again and we'll place them over the sacroiliacs. Over the sacroiliacs. Allow those joints to just soak up the heat of your palms. And now mind back in the dantian. Now just pulling it in. It's like I'm contracting the muscles around my dantian, and that's squeezing something into the points on the back. You can think of the kidneys as well, pulling in the dantian, squeezing energy into the kidneys. Contracting and releasing. and then into riding horse. Feeling the dantian. Spreading into the sacrum. And just try and be aware of the perineum. So the point underneath at the very, very bottom, which reflects onto this point here, the crown of the head. We want our awareness not simply to be something that we're noticing, but to be an energetic presence. So tension, good tension. When my mind is in my dantian, then there's a contraction there, there's a focusing of energy. When my mind's in my perineum, again, I'm contracting. We want to feel the tension here, releasing the hips. So we don't want it to be so tense that it makes this happen. It pulls everything in. I'm contracting here very, very locally so that everything around it can just release. So the more I focus in on my dantian, the more my legs relax out. And then I get this real sense of the feet grabbing the ground, the feet wanting to pull towards each other. And now let's just go from leg to leg. So I sink into the leg. That compresses the leg, but it also allows the other leg to expand. So as I sink into one leg, this feels like it's compressing, but this really opens out. And it's that opening out that grabs the ground in order to pull me back into it. So this is the action that's quintessentially Tai Chi. A sense of something opening out, embracing, and pulling in. This is yielding. I want to feel it as two things. I have to come into one leg, which compresses it, and that allows the other leg to open out. So there's always the two actions. Part of my mind is with this leg, it's supporting, and part of my mind is with this leg, it's really opening out and reaching. My hand reaches out, grabs something and pulls up into the dantian. I want the feeling the same thing is happening in the foot. This foot is pulling the ground, and in here there's a sense that it's trying to pull up into my dantian. So my arm and my leg are trying to do the same thing. My mind has to be loose and free enough so that the two sides of my body can do opposite things. My mind is too stiff, then the body will just want to be one thing. So here, one side of my body is supporting and holding, tightening. The other side of my body is really opening up and loosening. I need to have those two aspects in my mind as well as in my body. Allow the spine to tilt, because as I compress into this leg, there's a sense of this expanding out here from the hip. Let the heel come off the ground of that leg that's loosening and expanding. So as the energy sinks into one leg, it rises in the other side of the body. And now let's just try some, basically this, what we were doing earlier, but just on a bigger scale. So now just the whole spine flexing. Again, if you keep some awareness in the perineum, then you'll tend not to stick the bum out. Feel the action in the feet. So here, as I open up, my toes really expand and spread and extend. And then my toes really try and clench up. So my whole foot is working. And then just pulling into the Danshan, reaching out. It's all the same exercise, really. As soon as we split the body in half, one side and the other side, then all the exercises are basically the same. So it's just walking. So the form is just like an elaborate walk, really. One side of my body extends and opens up, and then it pulls in, which allows the other side to extend and open up. We want to feel the action in the leg as well as the arm. So this leg is straightening, the toes are expanding and lengthening, and then the toes grip. And that pulls me into the leg. And then the same thing, but now reaching up and pulling down into the heart. So as I repeat the exercise, I get more intense. The energy's building up. And as I get more intense, I also get more tense, but a good tension. I want the feeling that my whole body is toned up. The muscles are tight, but they're not rigid. If they're not tight, then energy can't flow through them. If they're rigid, then that will also block energy. So we have to really feel the fine line. Just into riding horse. Feel the dantian. The dantian is a tension. It's a point. It's a pulling into a point. If there was no tension there, then it would just disperse and disappear. So something is drawing in here. It doesn't have to be a physical tension, but it's a concentration. My mind is focused. That is tension, but good tension. It allows this area to spread open. Feel the perineum underneath that. So your base is not the dantian, your base is the perineum. Same as the top is not this point, it's the crown. They're like two sort of little anchors that allow the rest to contain. And now let's figure of 8 round the feet. So this is just the dantian really. If you think of the dantian as being a tightening here, which allows an expansion here, then that's just establishing a figure of 8. So as I tighten in here, it comes out of the back and loops around. So it can either be 2 separate circles like this, or I can just join them together into this continuous, endless figure of 8. Feel the pull here to bring the line into my dantian. And then as it goes through, something has to relax across here to allow it out. I see it in my mind, but then I have to do something in my body to make sure it's energy and not simply a visualization. Feel the perineum underneath this. And then just allow it to become waving hands in the clouds. So one hand coming up. Dantian tenses to receive this hand. The back here releases so that to allow this hand out. And then just back into body pulse. And now let's try this exercise. So now I'm beginning to turn. It's the same thing, just the two sides of the body just becoming opposites of each other. So one side sinks, one side rises, and a turn is introduced. I'm going around the front of one foot, but going around the heel of the other foot. One side is light, in the sense that I can see it, and the other side is dark, in the sense that I turn away from it so I don't see it. The feet need to be strong enough so that you can feel stable doing this. There's a sense that you're never quite on the heels. Even when the heel goes down, it doesn't really press into the ground. I can think of the two sides of my body, each containing its own circle, which is, what it would do if I was yielding. If I was yielding, I'll be reaching out and turning this way, and then the other side of the body can attack. But we know that if we push the intensity up a little bit, then that circle will twist itself, and then I will have a figure of 8 that is contained in this side of the body, and another figure of 8 in the other side of the body. And as I go over one, I go under the other. So let's just try. So all of these exercises, they start off as visualizations. So I see a shape which I get my body to follow. But then I want to feel as though it's come inside, and the figure of 8 is actually inside my body. It's no longer something out here that I'm tracing. It's inside my body, writhing away, wriggling along its path. And what you see in the hands is just the external expression of that. The intensity, it's a bit like speed intensity. It's like the quicker I go, it's like if I'm turning the waist like this, quicker I go, the more my arms fling out. But also, in order to keep that under some sort of control, the more I have to pull in. So it's the same with the figure of 8. It's wanting to do this, it's wanting to go wild, but there's part of it that's really drawing in. And it's that gives it its energy, really, the fact that these two movements, these two contrary movements, are balancing each other. So the more extreme the yang, the more extreme the yin has to be to balance it. This is what we want. We want to be the balance of two real extremes, rather than just this muddy, low energy middle ground. The more intense it gets, the closer it will get to your spine. You want the feeling that the movement is really gripping the spine like this. And that's just very, very healthy, because it will really iron out any kinks in the spine. You can see it, but my spine is collapsed, then everything's going to be happening in front of me. To get it to draw in, I have to really straighten up the back. So the toes pointing in a little bit. Yeah, so a sense that if my feet continued, the toes would point to a point in front of me and my heels would diverge. So the toes are very much with these singular centers and my heels are with the sort of the wings. The pairs. So I've got a pair here. I've got a pair from my shoulders and a pair here. So ward off, it's really just the body expanding into a claw. I'm opening my hands in order to grip and grab something. That's the feeling in my whole being. That's my presence. My presence is extending into the world, but in order to draw something in. So it's going out and coming in at the same time. Okay, now let's just walk. What we want to do is just try and activate the hamstrings. I'm doing the figure of 8 around my feet, but I use that to walk. So I go around this foot and now enables this foot to come off the ground. And now I want to pull the ground towards me by tensing the back of my leg here, the hamstring. So I'm pulling the ground and that draws me into the foot. And then I pull. So I just have to be very good at sinking and staying where I am. I want this real sense that I'm just really comfortable and happy in this foot. There's no part of me that wants to leave it. So this leg has to really work hard to pull me out of this leg. Feel the hamstring. This muscle should be rigid. So we have to investigate the emotion of the hamstring. When my hamstrings are ready, when they can work, then I'm just I'm more sort of gritty and ruthless and more inside, really. No part of me needs to come out. Solitude is something that I'm very happy with, content rather than happy. So I use the hamstring to pull myself into the leg. And there's a sense that when I'm on the leg, it's still working to keep me in the leg and keep me down. So as I come into the leg, obviously my quadricep has to work now to stop me from collapsing. But I want the feeling that my hamstring is still sucking me into this leg. It doesn't really let go. This hamstring only really lets go when the other one kicks in. The hamstrings are very important because without working the hamstrings, there's an aspect of our minds that we never really encounter or work on. So without real activity, potential activity in the hamstrings, you'll just never develop killer instinct. So just this ability to just get the job done without a second thought. So let's just bring it back. The sense that I'm pulling with my hamstrings, even if they're not actually getting tight, they're beginning to. It's like the spring that's contracting all the time. So I throw my arm out, but only so that I can pull it back in again. Nothing ever really escapes me. And it's very much of the perineum as well. Okay, now let's just quickly just do the form, just the beginning. So maybe up to single width, but just with the figures of 8. Basically just going around the figure of 8, around my feet. So I go around this foot, enables this foot to step. I go around this foot, and then I go around this foot, but without bringing the weight into it. And then I just put the lid on by bringing this hand in. And then I'm going to go around this foot, so that requires this hand to come in and enter this point here. I'm just figure of eighting around my feet. Let's try it once more. Just try and take it slowly. So again, it's this dynamic play between the extremes. The spirit will always make it want to speed up, and your integrity, if you like, your sort of real desire to do it correctly will slow it down. So there's this play between these, there's an equilibrium between these two as well. So I'm seeing this figure of 8. And then here, you can just figure 8 for this bit. Okay, so let's just bring it in and finish. Whenever we just come back, it's just very, very difficult, because as soon as we come back to stillness, it's like we have an image in our mind of what that stillness is, and what it is a locked body and a mind that's wandering. So we just have to make sure that when we come back to the stillness, it's not just the body. The body has to remain potentially active. It's the mind that's coming in, concentrating, condensing. And so we need to keep this movement there, if only implicitly, so that when everything becomes still, I can just leap into action, the slightest spark. So a mind that refuses to wander. It's not just a mind that's brought under control. And for that, you just need a real sense of this point. So the furthest we can get from here